Welcome to the Unity Spiritual Center of Pflugerville. I don't know what I was going to say other than that, but anyway, welcome. Today we're talking about Moses, when God told Moses in Exodus 3, and what he said was, I am that I am. Okay? So we're going to look at that because I'm looking at one of the big issues with us as human beings on a spiritual path. Who are we and who is God is a big section. And it's really kind of like a divide in the different religions. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time in that, and I'm going to look at who we are. But in Moses is looking at a burning bush, and the bush is burning spontaneously, just like a gas stove, if we use that in today's world. So it wasn't consuming. And the question was, that was the presence. God had his presence, metaphorically maybe, it doesn't matter. But Moses says, what's your name? And through the burning bush, God said to Moses, I am that I am. Now, please understand, you want to talk about controversy, that phrase has been talked about and translated all kinds of different ways, and there are all kinds of different attitudes under that conversation. There are people that say it's I am that I am. There's people that say I am who I am. There's also a translation that says I am who I will I am. If you see the differences. And having raised in fundamentalist house, God is out there someplace. So it's I am God, I am that I am. But about 12 years ago, I heard an idea that there's a comma after that. So the conversation was, I am that I am. And I want you to understand the difference in that phrase. Because when I say I am that, what is that? In my opinion, it's everything I see. So God is saying, I am everything. And nailing it down with I am. Just to make sure that Moses heard it. Okay, now you've got to understand that it was in, we don't know what language it was in, but it's been translated into English, so the English is imperfect as it comes to translations. So there is a possibility there that it is I am who I am, and who is, God is everything. So there's a question, and the question becomes, and if you stop and think about it, and I'm going to go a little bit out, when I say in my fundamentalist background, I am that is something outside of me, and it's something that I have to learn to do, or to be, or to sacrifice to. But when I say I am that, stop and think about that. I am. I am that. So God is saying, I am everything that I see. And the New Testament says, the kingdom of heaven is within. So what does that mean for us? So if you put that all together in a spiritual context, we are everything we look at. We are consciousness personified, and we have created everything that's in our world, which is the same story we keep going back to. So stop and I just want you to look at that. I am that. Okay? Now what does that mean? Am I the chair? Did I see it? Well, what is consciousness? See, consciousness is that part that I'm aware of. So if it really want to get deep, when I see a chair, it's part of my consciousness. And theoretically, the only reason it exists is because I see it. And if you start getting a little bit woo into some of the new quantum physics and the string theory, everything we see is part of us. And everything is connected. Which is right back to the idea that we are one, and that God's language is love. So taking that and looking at it, the question is, we have to define things. Everything needs a label. Anybody agree? If I look at that, I see a stand and I see a we don't call it telephone. Anyway. But I see a chair So the minute I name something, that's part of me. Because the only way I know what that chair is if I identify it and it has a label. So who am I? And I want you to take a minute and think about that. Just a simple phrase, who am I? In other words, where did your name come from? Who gave you your name? Okay? Now let's get really deep. Where did your gender come from? Where did the color of your eyes come from? Where did your station in life come from? Where did it come from that you wound up doing as a, let's call it, career? Who decided you should marry somebody? Who decided you should take the job you got? What was your influence in your life as you live it today? It's a combination of all those questions. So who am I? And if I really look at it, who am I is a conglomeration of everything people have told me, or ideas that I have picked up from outside of me. Yes or no? And a lot of it we had no choice about. We were forced to do this. Okay, so who am I? And how was I created? You know, we take this thing automatically, the sperm and the egg and all this kind of stuff. But how was I created? And what were the ideas that have been infused into my consciousness that have created who I am today? And if you combine that with I am that, you start looking at and pondering that whole idea. So who am I? You know, I keep saying, how did I wind up in Austin? Well, because somebody called me and they invited me to have a night at dinner, and we liked it here. We said, okay. And now I did a good sales job. Yeah. It's a really interesting conversation. But everything that I can identify, the label that Robert is, has been created by outside forces, theoretically. So who am I? Now, we come over here and we say, well, I'm a child of God, which is a nice thing to say, but where did that come from? Where is that idea? Do I infuse that idea? Do I really be that idea? It's like, in the prayer we just heard. And in that prayer, it was the heart, let your heart, So we are the heart, we are love, we are divinity in expression, okay? And yet, do we really embrace that? And who told us that? And we've also been told it's too good to be true. Is that part of what we've been told? So there's all this counter conversation about who we are. Now I'm finding now, people are telling me, you gotta slow down, Robert, okay? Because then now all that influence of my age is coming up. So there's all this stuff that's influencing me. But I'm still a child of God deep within me. So who is running me? Who is identifying me? Who is labeling me? And who is defining who I am? Now, I've had some people in my life that weren't necessarily good influences, and I still hang on to some of their beliefs, yes. And we've all had that. We talk about programming from childhood, and I'm laughing, everybody's still dealing with that stuff. So we're a combination of all those things, but the truth is, if I really get from a child of God, the label is complete and whole, just as I am. And what do I have to worry about? Now, what I'm realizing myself is, it's like, we found out, I guess it was Friday night that we had to go to Asheville, North Carolina. And immediately all the issues came up. Anybody stop and think about that? Oh my God, that's a two-day drive. Okay? And immediately all the fears started coming up. Okay? How am I going to drive? By the way, I enjoy driving. Okay? But you understand, automatically we start worrying about, okay, hotels, all that kind of stuff. And that's the real world influencing us, telling us, you've got to be careful about what you're going to do. Now, Randy said in his meditation, and the way I heard it was you have to let go because love already has a solution. In other words, love shows up to handle the issues. And if I go back, I am that I am. So if I put all that together, who's deciding what's going to happen on that trip and the way it's going to happen the minute I start controlling what's going to happen? There's a part of us, and I'm still, we all are working on this, and that's what I want. I keep thinking, okay, it's coming, okay? But the idea is sooner or later I'm going to release it and let go and let God, which is what we talk about all the time. But then when we're faced with issues, we got to label everything and say, oh my God, I have to be careful about this. So I've been looking at this idea, who am I? Okay, and the question I want you to ask yourself, who am I? Okay, who created me? Who created, really stop and think about this. Where did my name come from? All right? Now, we know if you get over into numerology and all that kind of stuff, the date you were born and your name and how just and everything has an influence on the energies of the universe. So where did all that stuff come from? And is there an energy for good in the universe? And do we really believe it? Or are we still planning and worrying and being, I want to say, a false picture of ourselves, our true self? So when we say true self with a T, that's a higher self, that's the God self, that's the higher self, that's who we really are. And is that a control, or is, I am that? And who is that in our life? So it's an interesting conversation. And I keep going back to it. I am that with a comma, I am. Now, stop and think about the word I am. Okay? I want you to think, I am. Do you understand that's an evocative word? Because the minute I say I am, what am I evoking in my life? Spirit, God, divinity. Because who is I am? Is the frequency, when I speak that, I speak the frequency of divinity, and I call it forth, and then the question is, what do I say after it? So it sort of says, I am, and here it comes, happy. And this morning I said, I am stiff. And divinity said, okay, that's really what you want, Robert. And we forget that. We get lost in the conversation of the world. We buy into the image of who I am that the world has created for us, and then we continue along our merry way. I don't know about you. Anybody have problems? And we live in our problems. We do. Because I have a tendency to chew on them, and Jesus very clearly says at least 30 or 40 times, do not worry. Okay? And yet, the I am that I am is over here worrying. Rather than looking at, Jesus said, don't worry, I am what I speak. And we do that in a consciousness when we're in that understanding of who I am. And the truth is, we forget who I am. So we're right back to real basic fundamentals. Who am I? And that's where we're looking at spiritually. And see, on a spiritual context, over here we can say, God, Jesus is out here and he can save me. But really, really, Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within you. Jesus said, these things I do, you shall do even greater things. So it's up to us to work with our own I am and create that. I'm back to Randy. Randy used the term, where two or more are gathered together. See, here's the key. Here's the physical body that I have. And the physical body has taken over our beliefs and runs our lives, whether we know it or not. The key to it is getting back into the spiritual body. So there's two of us all the time. There's the higher self, and there's the body working. And so when there are two or more are gathered, that's when things happen. When we start integrating on our heart. Thank you for the heart idea. Okay? Because it really is letting go and letting go. And we say that with such, it's kind of like, oh, you know, okay. But it's really, fine. I still talk about the 11th commandment in a funny way, but, you know, my 11th commandment is sweatest thou not. So what do we really have to worry about if we really believe who I am as a child of God? And if I really believe I'm a child of God, what am I? I am the representative of divinity in my world. And every time I speak, I'm creating my world as I move forward. And see, we think the world, back in Genesis 1, the world was created. Guess what? The world is still being created. How many people have been on the face of the earth since Genesis 1? Stupid question, right? Well, there's creation going on. And if you don't believe that, look around. There's houses being built everywhere, brand new cars. Now we have electric cars. You know, we just go on and on and on. And we are creating, it says, we walk through this world, we're creating the world we live in. Literally. So, and we're creating that through the divinity that we are. And the divinity, so remembering who we are, that's why we need to be involved in meditation, silence. That's why we need to spend time away occasionally. That's why we need to be reading books. Maybe even pick up the Bible. Anybody read the Bible through? Thank you. Okay, it's amazing what you find. Okay, and it doesn't matter. Really, one of the reasons we do what we do is Valerie's doing the Eye of the Storm. Okay, B is doing the 5 Principles. Wednesday we do the Course of Love. Larry and I do that. And so there are all these possibilities. But the key to it is if we stay out in the fear and the world nomenclature that keeps telling us it ain't true, we have to stay in that understanding of who we are. And I'm not saying it's easy. That's why it's important to have a group. And by the way, we're going to be praying more together. Okay? Because really, this group is a healing group. And you have not, I look at Randy and Jane have put together more healings. Someday we're going to go back to that doing it on Monday nights.
We're already talking about it.
Okay. I've been mentally moving furniture around so we can put 3 tables in. Does that work?
Sure.
So we just put something together, okay? However, the kingdom of heaven is within who?
All of us.
Yeah. So who am I? Who am I is really, I'm asking us to really look at who am I? And do I really believe who I am? And do I really believe who you are? Because if I believe you are, I love you unconditionally, and everybody around me I love unconditionally. Even the neighbor that creates problems, even the whatever. I don't know who you have in your family, but we all have that individual in our family. Okay. I think I've made my point. I have a lot more to talk about, but I'm not going to talk anymore. So thank you. And seriously, I'd like you to ponder, who am I and what do I really believe? And what's possible given that base of who I am. Thank you. I love you. Bye.